I chose Joy Day not because of our connection as harpists, but in gratitude in the realization of how she is actually responsible for the gathering of souls that brought me to Questhaven. I realize that's more my story, so I find it interesting, though, just to find out how Joy and her family are actually connected to me, so I'll just touch upon it briefly. As many of you know, Joy and her husband, Vernon, went to court along with Flower and Lawrence to become foster parents to my mother, Patricia Kelly, a 13-year-old runaway who bravely testified against her own alcoholic mother to be at Questhaven with the Day family and to take care of Flower's children. My father was led to Questhaven by Joy's sister, Marion. Her husband, Dr. Clark, employed my grandmother, my other grandmother, as a nurse, and they just came out church shopping one day. And Marion actually lived here at Questhaven on one of the cottages on the grounds, Casa Canta, where Rob and I have lived for the last 7 years. My father immediately spotted my mother, who was preparing a lunch plate for Flower because she didn't go down to the terrace much, to take up to her home after the service. And then Joy's other sister, Dorothy Thomas, introduced my parents, and they were married very soon afterwards in the church in 1960, the first wedding to be held in this building. And lastly, and most importantly, my husband of almost 37 years, Rob, was encouraged to come to Questhaven by Joy's daughter, Dorothy Blake. And Joy and Vernon were actually my godparents, so here I am. Let's dive into Joy's story of a life impacted by a beautiful soul and teacher, the Reverend Flower A. Newhouse. And these sharings and quotes will be from the book, I Walked with an Angel, My Life as a Disciple of Flower A. Newhouse. Joy was a young married mother of 2 when her older sister told her of a spiritual teacher that came to Medford, Oregon in the summers to give a series of lectures. Her sister says, she is a radiant person who looks like an angel and inspires us as one. The radiation coming from her is so pure, so holy, I have utter confidence in the wisdom she is sharing. Joy let her sister know immediately that she had been wanting to find a setting in which she could use her music, not as a performer or soloist, but as background used to raise the vibration of the listeners. If Flower ever came to Portland, she would love to play for her lectures. Well, destiny was at work. By that summer, Joy was living in Southern Oregon and playing for the series of lectures given by Flower. She describes her first meeting with Flower this way. The first time I heard Flower speak was at a public lecture in Medford. As I had wished, I used my harp for background music. Here was someone who emanated the power and beauty of an angel. Standing there in her soft pink robe, she looked ethereal, but it was her eyes that gripped my attention. They seemed to see into my soul. And having been one of Flower's students myself, I remember, especially at communion, her just looking right through me. It was amazing, her gold eyes. Flower would stay and greet each audience member after lectures, and by the time Joy had covered her harp and gathered her music, she was the last in line. Joy says, as I stood close to her, the light of her presence was so strong, I could not think of a word to say. She thanked me for giving the musical background and told me the harp had a protective angel and would be used for Christ's work. Joy had been a professional harpist early on and had been part of the symphony and taught both harp and piano. At this point on, she took the vow to the Christ, I offer up to thee my gift of music, that the angelic music may pour through me from harp, from voice, from whatever avenue of expression I am guided toward, to bless the world around me and attune to a higher sphere. Joy spoke of the importance of music in the service to prepare the audience for the spoken word. And at one point in her life, she talks about an experience she had, which she called her dark night of the soul. This is as a student with Flower. Joy was getting very self-satisfied and felt just sort of on top of a spiritual mountain and was very exalted in her perception of her own progress. This was the temptation of spiritual pride. As a teacher, Flower brought this to her attention, and Joy began to question everything and took the journey of inner exploration of seeing her not-so-pretty past in a very honest way, and all the former masks had to fall away. All of her drive, her competitiveness, her desire to be admired, none of this mattered anymore. And one night, in complete surrender, she got the inner message to remember that each person is on their own spiritual journey. All she had to do was love another, help another, and encompass another with light. And this is what got her through a very difficult period in her lifetime. And this whole process took about 2 years working with Flower closely as her teacher to help her with this new resolve. To close, I want to read a few excerpts from the letter of tribute, which is in the book, that describes so beautifully Joy's appreciation of her experience with Flower as her spiritual guide and teacher. Beloved Flower, dearest friend and teacher, you gave me the joy of being. To appreciate this time as a human being dedicated to spiritual unfoldment. To each student sent to you, you saw the jewel within the soul, encouraging, inspiring, correcting. You gave us the stepping stones on a high road to Christ discipleship. You made the Christ a living model for us to strive for. You were an extraordinary spiritual teacher who never gave up on us. Your instruction was awe-inspiring, life-changing. You taught us holy obedience and dedication to a cause, showed us that everything we do as humans is a rehearsal for mastership. Beloved teacher, what I owe you in your living of his light can never be put into words. You gave us the unobstructed universe, the challenge of living time, and the ability to tap the resources of spirit for strength and wisdom. Life has become the great adventure. And Joy had 99 years of great adventures. And now the Reverend Felice Reynolds.